Yeah, well, it was a matter of some money. It became money, and yeah, it was a matter of principle. Coppola came to my farm.
At 89, Robert Duvall is finally pulling back the curtain on one of Hollywood's most legendary films, The Godfather. For decades, fans have speculated about the drama and tension behind the scenes. Now Duvall is setting the record straight, revealing what really happened on set during the making of the classic. His confession uncovers the untold stories that shaped the film and the relationships that nearly broke it apart. At 89, Robert Duvall, who played the cool-headed Tom Hagen, the Corleone family's consigliere, has shared some stories that give us a glimpse into the wild, funny, and sometimes tense moments that shaped this cinematic masterpiece. We're talking about a film that changed Hollywood, set new standards for storytelling, and became a cultural touchstone. But what really happened on that set? What was it like working with legends like Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, and James Caan under the direction of Francis Ford Coppola? The Godfather, released in 1972, wasn't just a movie, it was a phenomenon. Based on Mario Puzo's best-selling novel, it told the story of the Corleone family, a New York mafia dynasty led by Vito Corleone, played by Marlon Brando, and his son Michael, played by Al Pacino. Robert Duvall's character, Tom Hagen, was the family's lawyer and consigliere, the guy who kept things steady, offering calm advice while the Corleones navigated betrayal, violence, and power struggles. Duvall's performance was subtle but powerful, earning him an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. He wasn't flashy like Brando or intense like Pacino, but he held his own, and his role was critical to the film's heart. Now let's set the stage. It's the early 1970s. And The Godfather is in production. The cast is a mix of heavyweights and up-and-comers. Marlon Brando, already a legend for films like On the Waterfront, is Vito Corleone. Al Pacino, a relative newcomer, is Michael. James Caan is the hot-headed Sonny, and Robert Duvall is Tom Hagen, the adopted son who's more level-headed than the rest. Francis Ford Coppola, the director, is a young filmmaker with big ideas, but under insane pressure from Paramount Pictures, the studio bankrolling the film. They didn't trust Coppola's vision, and the production was a high-stakes gamble. The budget was around $6 million, big for the time, and the studio was nervous about everything, from casting to the film's dark tone. Duvall, looking back at 89, has shared some incredible stories about this time, many of them in interviews like one with the New York Times in 2014, and another with Entertainment Weekly in 2022 for the film's 50th anniversary. He's talked about the camaraderie, the pranks, and the challenges of working on a set where everyone knew they were making something special, even if the studio didn't believe it at first. One of the most famous stories he's told is about the mooning contest that became a running joke on set. Yep, you heard that right, mooning. It all started with a dare, and it set the tone for the kind of loose, playful vibe that helped the cast get through the long days of filming. Picture this. The cast is at a pre-production dinner getting to know each other. Duvall and James Caan are driving home, and they spot Marlon Brando in another car. Duvall, with a mischievous grin, dares Caan to moon Brando, stick his butt out the window, and give the legend a shock. Caan, known for his quick wit and bold personality, doesn't hesitate. He does it, and Brando, the ultimate prankster, loves it. That moment, Duvall said in his Entertainment Weekly interview, kicked off a full-on mooning contest on set. Brando, Caan, and even Duvall got in on it, flashing each other to keep things light. Coppola would sometimes call out, "Come on, guys, we've got to be serious." But Duvall noted that the director secretly enjoyed it because it relaxed everyone. It was a way to shake off the heavy subject matter. After all, they were filming scenes about murder, betrayal, and organized crime. This prank war wasn't just random fun. It built a bond among the cast. Duvall said Brando, despite his larger-than-life status, was like a godfather to the younger actors. He'd take time to connect with them, share stories, and set the tone for collaboration. Duvall, along with actors like Dustin Hoffman and Gene Hackman, used to meet up in New York before The Godfather and talk about Brando constantly. They'd mention his name 25 times in a single conversation because he was such an inspiration. On set, Brando's presence was electric. He'd joke with Caan, who'd tell a quip and get Brando laughing after a 3-second delay, as Duvall recalled. That dynamic, Brando's gravitas mixed with Khan's energy, made the set feel alive, even when the scenes were intense. But it wasn't all fun and games. One of the juiciest behind-the-scenes stories Duvall has shared involves Brando's infamous use of cue cards. Brando, at this point in his career, wasn't big on memorizing lines. Instead, he had his dialogue written out and taped around the set, on props, walls, and even on other actors. In one scene, Duvall was holding up cue cards for Brando, and there's a famous Reddit post from r/movies in the making showing a photo of Brando's lines taped to Duvall's body during a scene. Some crew members found it frustrating, with one Reddit user calling it a kick in the gut, to see a legend not fully preparing. But Duvall, ever the professional, took it in stride. In his Entertainment Weekly interview, he said it was just part of Brando's process. "That's the way he works," Duvall explained. "I tried it once. It didn't work for me. You can learn the lines perfectly and still have spontaneity." Brando's cue cards weren't about laziness, Duvall insisted. It was about keeping things fresh. Brando believed that not memorizing lines helped him stay in the moment, searching for the character's truth. And let's be real, his performance as Vito Corleone is iconic, so whatever he was doing worked. He won the Best Actor Oscar, though he famously rejected it in protest of Hollywood's treatment of Native Americans. Duvall, reflecting on this, said Brando's quirks didn't detract from his genius. In fact, they added to the mystique. There's even a clip from Brando's home videos, included in the 4K UHD release of the Godfather trilogy, showing him rehearsing Vito's death scene with those cue cards visible. Duvall thought it was all part of the game, part of the fun. Now let's talk about the tension on set, because it wasn't all mooning and laughs. Coppola was under constant pressure from Paramount. The studio didn't want Brando or Pacino at first, thinking Brando was washed up and Pacino was too unknown. Duvall, in his CNET interview in 2022, said Coppola worked under duress and feared being fired at any moment. The studio was breathing down his neck, questioning every decision. But Coppola fought for his vision, and Duvall respected him for it. He kept going to make it his vision, Duvall said. That persistence paid off, but it made for a stressful shoot. Duvall recalled moments where Coppola would push the cast to experiment, letting them interpret their roles rather than dictating every move. This freedom was a big deal for Duvall, who played Tom Hagen as an outsider who was kind of an insider but not 1,000%, as he told the AV Club in 2022. One of Duvall's favorite scenes, and one he's talked about a lot, was when Tom Hagen has to tell Vito Corleone that his son Sonny has been killed. It's a gut-wrenching moment, with Duvall's calm delivery clashing with Brando's raw emotion. In his NPR interview in 1996, Duvall said he loved that scene because it showed Tom's loyalty and restraint, even in the face of tragedy. "You can't cross the line," he said, explaining how Tom, as the adopted son, had to stay composed while delivering devastating news. That scene, filmed in a single take according to some accounts, is a masterclass in acting, with Brando's quiet grief and Duvall's understated pain stealing the show. Duvall knew about a third of the way through filming that they were making something extremely special. He told The Hollywood Reporter in 2022 that he felt it in his gut, a rare instinct he only had one other time, on the set of Lonesome Dove. Another standout moment for Duvall was the Hollywood negotiation scene, where Tom Hagen goes to persuade movie producer Jack Waltz to cast Johnny Fontaine in a film. This is the scene that leads to the infamous horse's head in Waltz's bed. Duvall's performance is all about quiet authority. Tom doesn't raise his voice, but you know he means business. In his NPR interview, he said he enjoyed playing that restraint, contrasting with the flashier characters around him. "I'm the one to be discreet," he said, noting how Tom's role as the consigliere required him to tone things down, while others were explosive. That scene, with its sharp dialogue and underlying menace, is a fan favorite, and Duvall's delivery makes it unforgettable. But let's get to one of the biggest controversies Duvall has talked about: why he didn't return for The Godfather Part 3. Fans were crushed when Tom Hagen was written out, with a line saying he died before the film's events. No details, just gone. In interviews, like one with CBS in 2004 and another with Reuters in 2010, Duvall explained it came down to money. Al Pacino was offered $8 million to return as Michael Corleone, while Duvall was offered $1 million. Duvall didn't expect to match Pacino's salary. He said he was fine with Pacino earning twice as much, but 3 or 4 times? That was too much. It just isn't right, he told Parade magazine in 1990. He felt the producers were being cheap, especially since Tom Hagen was a key part of the saga. Coppola has said The Godfather Part 3 was meant to focus on a split between Michael and Tom, a dramatic arc that would have given Duvall a meaty role. In the DVD commentary for Part 3, Coppola admitted the film felt incomplete without Duvall. Instead, they created a new character, B.J. Harrison, played by George Hamilton. But fans and critics agreed he didn't have the same gravitas. Duvall, in his Reuters interview, said he had no regrets about skipping Part 3 because it wasn't as good as the first 2. It wasn't as good as the other 2, he said bluntly. He even teased that Coppola was more interested in his mom's Maryland crab cake recipe than convincing him to return. Coppola visited Duvall's farm in Virginia to negotiate, but left the recipe behind and didn't meet Duvall's salary demands. This salary dispute wasn't just about money. It was about respect. Duvall felt his contribution to the first 2 films, which were critical and commercial juggernauts, deserved better. The Godfather grossed $243.8 million worldwide, equivalent to $1.6 billion today, and Part 2 won Best Picture. Duvall's Tom Hagen was the glue, the voice of reason balancing the chaos. Fans on Reddit in posts like one from Our Movies in 2021 agree that Part 3 suffered without him. One user wrote, "It's simple. No Robert Duvall as Tom Hagen. Coppola fucked himself by not paying that man the salary he deserved." Another said the film lacked the flawless chemistry of the first 2, and Duvall's absence was a big part of that. Let's talk about the chemistry on set, because Duvall has emphasized how much it shaped the film. He and James Caan were especially close, with Caan's humor keeping everyone loose. Duvall told the New York Times in 2014 that Caan was quick-witted, and Brando loved him for it. One story Duvall shared was about Caan getting mad at Coppola for cutting a scene where Sonny was more prominent. Caan was so upset he walked out of a screening, and even 50 years later, he was still annoyed, as he told The Hollywood Reporter in 2022. Duvall, more reserved, didn't hold grudges like that, but he appreciated Caan's passion. That energy translated on screen, especially in scenes where Tom and Sonny clash over strategy, like when Tom urges Sonny to think long-term, while Sonny's ready to go to war. Coppola's directing style also left a mark on Duvall. Unlike some directors who micromanage, Coppola gave actors room to breathe. Duvall told the AV Club that Coppola wanted to see how you would interpret the part. This was huge for Duvall, who saw Tom Hagen as a delicate balance, an outsider by blood, but a trusted insider by loyalty. He had to stay in the background, but be ready to step up when needed. That approach came from Coppola's trust in his actors, even when the studio was skeptical. Paramount's doubts about Brando and Pacino were a constant headache, but Coppola's insistence on casting them paid off. Duvall, who was Coppola's first choice for Tom from the start, felt validated by that trust. Another tidbit Duvall's shared is about the film's legacy. He knew early on that The Godfather was special, but he didn't expect it to become the defining gangster movie. In his CNET interview, he said he felt it about a third of the way through filming, a gut instinct, that this was an important film. He's only had that feeling twice, once with The Godfather and once with Lonesome Dove, which he called the Godfather of Westerns. The film's impact is undeniable, It has a 97% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, a perfect 100 on Metacritic, and critics like Roger Ebert called it unquestionably great. Duvall's performance as Tom Hagen is part of that, with critics praising his understated power. Ebert even wrote that when he saw Duvall on screen, he thought, "There's Tom Hagen, not just an actor playing a role." The set wasn't without its quirks, though. Duvall's told stories about Brando's pranks beyond the mooning. In one Oprah interview from 2015, he said Brando would swap out his cue cards for random things, like a wedding invitation, just to mess with the crew. They'd have to yell, "Cut," while Coppola sighed, "Come on, guys." It was chaotic, but it worked. Brando's improvisational style, paired with Duvall's discipline, created a dynamic that felt real. Duvall said Brando takes what you give, meaning he fed off his co-star's energy. In scenes like the one where Tom tells Vito about Sonny's death, you can feel that give and take. Brando's quiet devastation and Duvall's controlled grief make it one of the film's most powerful moments. Let's not forget the horse's head scene, tied to Duvall's character. Tom Hagen's visit to Jack Woltz sets up one of cinema's most shocking moments, when Woltz wakes up with his prized horse's head in his bed. Duvall's never explicitly confirmed how the scene was filmed, but Coppola has said they used a real horse's head from a slaughterhouse, not a prop. The actor who played Woltz, John Marley, wasn't told it was coming, so his scream was genuine. Duvall, in his calm way, said in interviews that the scene was effective, but didn't get into the gory details. His focus was on Tom's role as the messenger, delivering the Corleone's ultimatum with chilling politeness. Duvall's stories also shed light on the film's production challenges. The studio's interference wasn't just about casting. They wanted a shorter runtime, a less violent tone, and a more commercial feel. Coppola fought tooth and nail to keep the film's epic scope, and Duvall admired him for it. In his CNET interview, Duvall said Coppola's ability to push through that pressure was why the film became a masterpiece. The studio's doubts were proven wrong when The Godfather became the highest-grossing film of its time, earning over $240 million worldwide. It won 3 Oscars, including Best Picture, and set the stage for Part 2, which many consider even better. Speaking of Part 2, Duvall's role grew. Tom Hagen takes on more responsibility after Vito's death, even acting as temporary Don when Michael's away. Duvall loved the evolution of his character, especially scenes like the one where he convinces Frank Pentangeli to slit his wrists to protect the family. In his NPR interview, he called that scene one of his favorites, appreciating the moral complexity of Tom's loyalty. But the absence of James Caan in Part 2 made it less fun for Duvall. "Jimmy was funny the whole time," he told Entertainment Weekly. Without Caan's energy, the set was quieter, though still intense. Duvall's reflections at 89 show a man who's proud of his work but doesn't dwell on it. He's said he doesn't watch The Godfather often, but when he catches it on TV, he gets sucked in. "I'll watch a little bit, and then I watch the whole thing," he told CNET. "It's intoxicating," he said, "even after all these years. That pull comes from the film's universal themes: family, loyalty, power, and the incredible performances, including his own." He's also clear that The Godfather and Lonesome Dove are the 2 projects he's most proud of, calling them the 2 big film epics of his career in his New York Times interview. The mooning contest, Brando's cue cards, Coppola's battles with the studio, and Duvall's salary dispute for Part 3, these stories paint a picture of a set that was as dynamic as the film itself. Duvall's memories highlight the mix of chaos and brilliance that made The Godfather what it is. The pranks kept things human, the tension pushed everyone to perform, and Coppola's vision tied it all together. Duvall's Tom Hagen was the calm in the storm, both on-screen and off, and his stories give us a window into a time when a group of talented people came together to create something timeless. But let's dig a bit deeper into the context of the film's production. because Duvall's stories don't exist in a vacuum. The Godfather was a risky project from the start. Mario Puzo's novel was a hit, but adapting it wasn't easy. The mafia was a touchy subject. Real mob figures were watching closely, and there were rumors of pressure on the production. Al Martino, who played Johnny Fontaine, reportedly got the role after his godfather, a real-life crime boss, leaned on the producers, according to The Godfather's Wikipedia page. Duvall's never confirmed those stories, but he's hinted that the set felt edgy at times, with the weight of the subject matter always present. Coppola's casting choices were another battleground. Paramount wanted big names like Ernest Borgnine or Anthony Quinn for Vito Corleone, thinking Brando was too risky due to his reputation for being difficult. Pacino, meanwhile, was a stage actor with barely any film credits. Duvall, however, was a safer bet. He'd already made a name for himself in films like MASH and THX 1138. Coppola fought for him from the start, and Duvall repaid that trust with a performance that's still studied by actors today. His ability to convey Tom's loyalty and restraint while still showing the character's inner conflict is a big reason why the film resonates. Duvall's also talked about the cultural impact of The Godfather. In his NPR interview, he acknowledged that some critics, like Andrew Saris, felt the film romanticized the mafia a bit too much. But Duvall argued that the filmmaking was so good, you could excuse that. The movie's not just about crime. It's about family dynamics, the cost of power, and the struggle to do what's right in a world full of wrong. Tom Hagen embodies that struggle, caught between his loyalty to the Corleones and his own moral compass. Duvall's performance makes you feel that tension without ever saying it outright. Another story Duvall's shared is about the music. Nino Rota's score, with its haunting main theme, is iconic, and Duvall said in his CNET interview that it added a layer of sadness and nostalgia to the film. Coppola went to Italy to find Rota, who'd scored Fellini's films, and that choice paid off. The music, combined with the performances and Coppola's direction, created a mood that's hard to shake. Duvall said it's part of why he gets drawn in every time he catches the film on TV. Let's circle back to the pranks because they're such a big part of Duvall's memories. Beyond the mooning, there were other antics, like Brando swapping his cue cards for jokes. Duvall told Oprah in 2015 that the cast would sometimes hide Brando's lines to mess with him, forcing him to improvise. It was risky, given Brando's stature, but he took it in good humor. These moments weren't just about laughs. They helped the cast bond and kept the set from feeling too heavy. Duvall said Khan was the ringleader, always cracking jokes, and Brando would hit his fists in laughter once he got the punchline. The production wasn't without its logistical challenges. Filming took place in New York, with iconic locations like Little Italy and Staten Island standing in for the Corleone's world. Duvall said in interviews that the city itself was a character, with its gritty streets and bustling energy. But shooting in New York was tough. Crowds, noise, and tight schedules made every day a grind. Coppola's ability to keep the cast focused while still letting them play was a balancing act. Duvall admired that, saying in his AV Club interview that Coppola's openness to actors' ideas made the film better. One lesser-known story Duvall's shared is about the rehearsal process. Coppola didn't just throw the cast into filming, he had them rehearse extensively, sometimes improvising to find the characters' voices. Duvall said in his Hollywood Reporter interview that these rehearsals helped him nail Tom's understated strength. He worked closely with Brando to build their dynamic, especially in scenes like the one where Tom updates Vito on the family's war with the other mafia families. Those moments feel effortless on screen, but they came from weeks of preparation. Duvall's also reflected on how The Godfather changed his career. Before the film, he was a respected character actor, but after, he became a household name. His Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor put him on the map, and he went on to star in films like Apocalypse Now, The Great Santini, and Tender Mercies, for which he won Best Actor in 1983. But he's always said, The Godfather was a turning point. In his NPR interview, he called it, about as good as you can get filmmaking-wise. He's proud to be part of it, even if he's not one to dwell on past glory. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, The Godfather Part 3. Duvall's absence wasn't just a personal choice. It changed the film. Coppola's original plan, as he said in the DVD commentary, was to explore a rift between Michael and Tom, a storyline that would have given the trilogy a deeper emotional core. Without Duvall, the film leaned heavily on new characters like Vincent, played by Andy Garcia, and felt disconnected from the first two. Critics and fans, like those on Reddit in 2021, have said the lack of Tom Hagen was a fatal flaw. One user wrote, Tom's presence would have offered a much-needed secondary figure of gravitas. Duvall himself has said he doesn't regret skipping it, but he's acknowledged the film's weaker reception, telling Reuters it didn't measure up.
The salary dispute also highlights a bigger issue in Hollywood, how actors are valued. Duvall wasn't asking for Pacino's $8 million, he just wanted something closer to fair. His $1 million offer was a fraction of what Pacino and even Diane Keaton, $1.5 million, were getting, according to IMDb's trivia page for Part 3. Duvall's stance was about principle, not greed. He'd been a key part of the franchise's success, and he felt shortchanged. Coppola, caught between his loyalty to Duvall and the studio's budget, couldn't bridge the gap. It's a shame, because Duvall's Tom Hagen could have elevated Part 3 from a decent film to something closer to the originals. Duvall's stories also remind us how collaborative filmmaking is. The Godfather wasn't just Coppola's vision, it was the cast, the crew, the music, the locations, all coming together. Duvall said in interviews that the set felt like a family, much like the Corleones themselves. The pranks, the tension, the late-night rehearsals, it all fed into the film's magic. Even the studio's interference, as frustrating as it was, pushed Coppola to fight harder for his vision, which Duvall respected. Let's wrap up with one final story Duvall's shared, because it's too good not to include. During filming, the cast would sometimes hang out after hours, swapping stories and unwinding. Duvall told The Hollywood Reporter in 2022 that one night, Brando pulled him aside and talked about acting, life, and everything in between. It wasn't a deep philosophical chat, just two guys connecting over their craft. Duvall said those moments stuck with him, not just because Brando was a legend, but because he was human. That's what made The Godfather so special. It was a bunch of humans, flaws and all, pouring their hearts into a story that's still gripping audiences 50 years later. At 89, Robert Duvall's reflections on The Godfather give us a treasure trove of insights. The mooning contests, Brando's cue cards, Coppola's battles, the salary dispute, they're all part of the legend. But more than that, they show how a film that could have been just another gangster flick became a masterpiece. Duvall's Tom Hagen was the heart of that, the quiet strength holding the Corleones together. His stories remind us why we love movies. They're messy, human, and sometimes, when everything clicks, they're magic. Thanks for joining me on this journey through one of cinema's greatest sets. Until next time, keep watching, keep listening, and maybe don't try mooning anyone unless you're ready for a contest. Robert Duvall's honesty gives fans a rare glimpse into the real-life struggles behind The Godfather's success.